Anyone else? Thank you very much. Okay, the other witnesses, we were going to put a time limit on. Please step forward for those in opposition.
Hello, committee. My name is Dr. Beth Crawford. I'm from Columbia, Missouri. Currently live in Columbia, Missouri. I practice in Jefferson City, Missouri. I'm originally actually from Houstonia, Missouri, which is a tiny little bitty town about halfway between Columbia and Jefferson City, or Columbia and Kansas City. I grew up on a farm, small town girl. And I'm here to testify in opposition of House Bill 711 and House Bill 1164. I come to you both as a professional, a pediatrician who treats and manages illnesses for children, and also as a mother. I am the mother of a 4-year-old little boy. His name is Maxwell, and I will soon be the mother of a little girl who's due in September. And I have to say, as a mother of soon-to-be mother of an infant, this bill kind of terrifies me. And the reason it terrifies me is because my baby will not be able to have an MMR vaccine until she's 12 months old. Currently, there is a measles epidemic sweeping the coasts, hundreds of cases of measles this year. And I am a bit terrified that my baby will be exposed to measles before I can protect her with an MMR vaccine. We know that measles, the highest risk for infants under 12 months to have complications such as encephalitis, which is life-altering brain damage. And so that makes me very scared. As a pediatrician, Dr. Blunt really put it very well in that our creed is to protect the children in our care. And as a pediatrician, I'm caring for the health of hundreds and hundreds of children who come to my practice and trust in me. And anytime that I interact with a vaccine hesitant family, I'm thinking about that child and their health, and in the back of my mind, I have that 2-month-old baby in the waiting room, and I wonder if this child goes home unvaccinated, is she going to get the measles, and is she going to bring that into my waiting room, and is she going to get that 2-month-old baby measles? I very much respect the passion of all of the families behind me, and that they really truly have the best interests of their children in mind as well. And thank you all for your stories. I always do my best to work with any family that crosses my door. I recently had a family who was previously opposed to vaccinations and didn't want to do vaccinations, and began vaccinating in my practice. And mother was very, very, very nervous. I gave her my personal email address. I said, you think of any questions that you come up with, and you send them to me, and I will make sure that you have an informed response, so that we can do this in a way that makes you comfortable. Okay. Our goal in removing patients from practice that don't vaccinate is not malicious. It's not because we don't want to care for these kids. It's just that we need to protect the small infants and immunocompromised children that are also in our practice and also counting on us. I'd welcome any questions.
Okay. Thank you very much. Almost right on the spot. Representative Morris.
Yes, thank you to inquire.
Please go ahead.
Thank you for your testimony. And you know what I said this morning, I absolutely know that every physician here tonight and every person here tonight want the same thing. We want healthy children. We want children growing up to be very successful, happy people, and we don't want these bad things to happen. But let me ask you a few questions.
Okay, please.
Do you take care of unvaccinated children? I think you said that.
I do.
So you have some.
I
Have
do.
you not seen any of these serious adverse vaccine injuries that we've been hearing about today? Have you not seen any?
I have not seen any serious adverse reactions. I have seen mild local reactions, so redness, soreness, maybe a little bit of swelling to the injection sites. I've seen some low-grade fevers, which means fevers under 100 degrees. All the patients in my practice have instructions to call me immediately if they have a fever over 100.4.
You know, we've got 6.2 million people in this state, and I've got I've got hundreds of people that have fevers of 103, 104, 106-degree fevers, and they're never gonna be the same again. So I don't know that your practice is in Jefferson City, but I don't know why you're not seeing those. I don't know why the first doctor's not seeing them, when I've got people just sending me emails all over the state and the country, and that bothers me. But let me go to another thing. Congratulations on having your second
Thank you,
child.
I appreciate
I've got
that.
3 children. We were fully vaccinated.
Uh-huh.
My 6 grandchildren fully vaccinated. I was fully vaccinated. My wife fully vaccinated.
Mhm.
I'm not against vaccines, but let me ask you this.
Okay.
Your first child that you still have right now that you're so proud of, what if she had tomorrow a serious adverse reaction, an injury to a vaccine, and you're smart, you're educated, and you know whether it is or not, okay? Now, what would you do for your second child that's gonna be born? Are you gonna change your theory on making and recommending vaccines for everybody? Or are you gonna kind of pull back a little bit with the education you have, and what are you gonna do?
Representative, I think that's an excellent question. So, first of all, you would have to really, really convince me that this was actually a vaccine injury. Vaccine injuries are very, very, very rare. True vaccine injuries that have been substantiated and proven to be connected. There's a lot of correlation, not a lot of causation data. So I would have to be very, very convinced that this vaccine actually caused the reaction. As to the decision for my second child, I feel that I would still vaccinate because my risk versus benefit. So I know that if vaccine injuries are so rare, if my child gets measles, if my child gets Haemophilus influenzae, if my child gets pneumococcal meningitis, those things are much more likely to kill her than a vaccine injury. Does that answer your question?
Well, yes, and it's easy to answer that, and I appreciate that answer. I'm sure you're sincere and you're honest, but you know what? If it really happened, we're just playing, we're pretending.
Yeah,
If it
and I
really
acknowledge
happens,
that.
you might actually change your mind. Okay, I'm gonna ask you one more question.
Please.
I appreciate that. You know, there's other states out there, and these insurance companies are in many, many states. And there are bonus systems. For pediatricians. Are you on a bonus system?
No, sir. I have never received any compensation
You
for
don't know of
vaccinating children.
you don't know of any physician that's on a bonus system.
I do not, sir.
I'm gonna be sending these people a example of a contract from another state. I'm trying to find one for Missouri. I know it exists somewhere, okay? And so you're saying no?
No, no, sir.
Thank you very much.
Representative Pollard,
To inquire,
please.
do you know of any bonus systems in the state?
I don't.
Um,
If these exist, someone forgot to send my check.
is there an issue with slowing the shop process down when parents uneasy? We've heard today, parents felt like they were forced, they weren't given an option to slow down a little bit, give one shot, wait a while. You know, I know when I took my daughter, it was like, the nurse showed up with 4 syringes, and I said, what are those for? She gets this, that, and the other. So is there a problem with slowing down?
So the problem that we, the reason that physicians are hesitant to slow down is because we're hoping to get the child as much protection as quick as we can. The CDC schedule has been validated and has been deemed safe. And there's a lot of sometimes misunderstanding about what the dangers are of combining those vaccines or giving several at once. So I'd like to kind of address that and explain a little bit about how vaccines work. Vaccines work just by presenting an antigen, so a piece of a virus or a live virus, to your immune system and asking your immune system to create a response. Your immune system goes through that exact same process thousands and thousands of times every day with everything that your body comes into contact with. The air that you breathe, the food that you eat, the viruses and bacteria that come into contact with you constantly. Your immune system is constantly undergoing this process that we're asking it to do with vaccines. So those 6 things that we vaccinate a child for in my office, it's a drop in the bucket compared to the rest of the things that their immune system has processed.
Have you ever we heard testimony earlier of a parent who was basically, she said, rushed out of a hospital and her child wasn't breathing because they haven't been vaccinated. you heard any story, anything like that?
I haven't, and I am very sorry that happened. I don't think it should ever happen. Children and all citizens have a right to emergency health care and should never be turned away from an emergency department, no matter their vaccination status.
You know, there's nothing, and I may be wrong, there's nothing in this bill that's changing, forcing parents to vaccinate. They still have that option. There's nothing in there to take that away from that option. You know, as a physician, when a police officer, and I hope maybe this isn't a good example, but when a police officer takes an oath that they're gonna run toward the violence, I was disappointed to hear that physicians can tell non-vaccinated children, since it's not against the law. I'm a retired superintendent, and we dealt with it in education a lot. But I was disappointed to hear that. Now, again, I think you should have the right to say, I'm gonna schedule my non-vaccinated at this time, so they don't expose the students, but I just can't believe we have doctors, or that's, I just think it's wrong. I'm just sorry, and I'm not against parents having that choice, but I just think it's wrong to do that.
So as a pediatrician, I am more than willing to run towards the danger. I don't mind being exposed to measles. I don't mind being exposed to whooping cough. I don't mind being exposed to Haemophilus influenzae. What I mind is taking all of the small babies in my waiting room with me.
Exactly. So if you schedule those, and I don't think that's discrimination. I just don't. If you schedule the non-vaccinated at a different time when the others aren't in there, but I just think it's wrong if doctors would not see patients.
And
We need to wrap this one. Was it Representative Wright?
Yes, if I could ask you the same question I asked the other doctor. We've heard lots of different reactions from vaccines. From your professional experience, are there all these different kinds of reactions, or are they typically the same kind of reaction?
you know, I haven't experienced personally that many vaccine reactions myself. So on a personal note, or from a personal stance, I can't speak to that so much. But I do agree with Dr. Blunt that it is feasible that one vaccination would affect multiple people in very different ways.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Representative Clemens.
Thank you for being here this evening. I probably should ask this question of the previous person giving testimony from the American Academy, but I just want to throw this out there. One of the things, I like to read all these science magazines, and I watch these documentaries on TV and all that sort of thing. One of the things that strikes me, we talk about viruses, the easiest thing to understand is influenza, which we always refer to it as bird flu or swine flu. And there's good reason for that, because it actually is born out of those species, and at some point on an annual basis, it makes the leap from one species to another species because it mutates. We nearly eradicated polio in this country, nearly gone, and now we've had some outbreaks of polio recently in a couple areas. One of the things I do know about viruses is that they're crafty little buggers, and they're a very simple process. They're actually just sort of protein and DNA, and they reprogram cells to replicate for themselves. And when they're faced with a challenge, they readily mutate and change form. So one of the things that I'm curious about, and this is something that I'll probably have to have an email response back, is mutation rates for the things that we immunize against. So for example, measles. So we reduced the occurrence of measles in this country, but we have an outbreak of measles, and those measles encountered folks that have been immunized against the existing strains of measles. They don't like that, so they mutate. And now we have a strain of measles that we have no immunization against. So can you speak to that, and better yet, can I have an email response from viewers or compatriot about those mutation rates? Thank you.
Yes, I think we'd be happy to provide that.
Could you submit that in a written testimony? Would that be all right if you submitted that in a written testimony?
I think that'd be fine.
All right. Representative Morris.
Very quickly, while you're doing that, I think that's great. I'd like to ask you one more thing. In writing, I'd like for you to submit to
Point of order.
Point of order.
Mr. Chair, it's my understanding that individuals who are the bill sponsors or bill presenters cannot cross-examine. And I wanted to give latitude to the chair and the vice chair. And in the interest of time, perhaps these are questions that might be better asked offline, just so that we can move along.
Would the bill sponsor be willing to take some of the questions in writing and be satisfied with that?
Yeah, how will they know what the question is?
You can submit it to them in writing.
I'll give it to them, right? Okay, if you'll give me the doctor's name and address, we'll be glad to do that.
Which doctors? I don't know if it's my responsibility. I think she's filled out a witness form, so you can get the name and address from this witness.
Okay.
It has my home address and cell phone number on it.
Okay.
You're welcome to use either.
We're gonna get it lost.
Okay. Okay. Have it. Okay. All right. Okay.
No disrespect to the vice chair. And it's been a lot of time in between since he's presented this bill and the time we've heard this testimony, but it's my understanding that people who are presenting bills cannot cross-examine the folks who are presenting or testifying either in or against
Okay.
them. And so, I mean, it's
I
again, it's not
think maybe
disrespectful
I think
to
that,
you,
I think
Mr.
that
Vice
probably
Chair.
is a well-taken point,
it's
but
just
I
for the
want to
interest,
be
in the interest of time is more so what I'm concerned.
I want to be sure that I know the sponsor has a very passionate interest in this.
Indeed.
And I want to be sure that he has an opportunity to have those questions adequately answered to him.
Absolutely.
Representative Pollard.
Thank you for your testimony. I was wondering if you have any patients with a significant history that you'd advise against vaccination.
I do.
You do?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
And a question that I'd like you to ask every physician who gets on the stand, are your children vaccinated?
Sure.
And my answer is yes.
Sure, that's a great question, and I just might do that. And since it was pointed out, I might just take just a little short second for one quick question.
Very quickly.
An extra question. I think something that was lost on physicians who are denying, I don't know how to frame it, but physicians who are refusing services to an unvaccinated child. I think some of the perception is that is because of the other children that the physician is treating. Can you speak to your concern for that child and why your concern for that child might cause you as a physician not to treat that unvaccinated child? I think that point has been lost.
Yes, that's a great question. So my concern for the child that's in front of me is primarily that my relationship with their parents is so just untrustful. That are we really going to have a good working relationship that will serve the best interest of this child? And because this is something that I know in my heart of hearts is the best thing for a child. And if we can't agree on something that is to me so fundamental, then perhaps I am not the best fit for that family. And that's okay for me not to be the best fit for that family. And I would be happy to find them a pediatrician that would be a better fit for them. But I think that I would be poorly serving the child if I continued a relationship with the parents where there was no trust between us. Does that answer your question?
It does, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Helms.
Thank you for your testimony. So, a matter of trust, if they don't agree with you in this area, that means they don't trust you at all.
It's something that's, like I said, is so fundamental. It's the base of what we do in pediatrics is preventative care. We are, most of the pediatric patients who cross our doorstep are not going to be sick. Our goal is to keep them healthy. And I feel like if they don't trust the experience that I have caring for children, the education that I went through and learned about vaccinations, if we're not able to have a conversation about that, then no, I don't think there's trust there.
And so if someone has a fundamental belief for whatever the reason, and you disagree, I mean, I think it sounds pretty hard to me, and that it almost sounds religious in nature, that if you don't agree with me wholeheartedly, then I can't work with you. And if any of us on this committee did that, we would have no one to talk to. And so, I mean, I understand where you're coming from, but I would also say that, again, I come down on this issue as you, as a fundamental human being, have the right to reject or accept treatment how you want. I don't care if every doctor in the world says this is what it ought to be. Fundamentally, you as a human being have a right to determine your level of care. And the parent is the child has the parent, and that's their role. And so I think we as a society need to respect the liberty aspect of this, far outweighing, because science changes, and I can count on multitude of different issues where science and research has said this is what we need to do now, and 10 years later it's something else. And that's my concern. But thank you, Chad.
Thank you for your testimony.
Any other questions?
No, I think we need to move on.
I'll make this short and sweet.
Thank you very much. You know the scoop. Name and where you're from, and fill out the form.
All right.
And you got 3 minutes.
All right. Mary Deacon, retired pediatrician, practiced for more than 20 years. Just retired last October. It's been wonderful, but I miss taking care of the kids. I think that who had the idea, I think you did, of having unimmunized kids come to the pediatric clinic at one time is an excellent one, because our main concern about unimmunized children is the potential health risks they pose to those children that are not able to be immunized, whether it be from age, infancy standpoint, immune status, chemotherapy, things like that. So that's an excellent idea, and I think that will allow, if people want to take that option, allow some pediatricians to go ahead and continue taking care of unimmunized children. The problem arises when you come down to daycares and schools. These are daily exposures for these kids that do not have the immunizations. The babies that are at these daycares are not fully immunized, and they're at higher risk for coming down with some of the infectious diseases that some unimmunized child might be carrying. So I truly feel that it is important safeguard for those children at risk that they be allowed to especially be safe in their daycare and their school environment. And that's where I am. Questions?
Okay, thank you very much. Representative Hills.
Thank you. Again, thank you for your testimony. I have a question, maybe, and this is a broader sense. It seems to me, I'm 53, it seems to me that I hear more about ADHD or, just all types of things, and allergies, and I'm thinking of, societal, and how is it that it seems that more people have immune type issues, and I'm not trying to connect the two. Is there something in how society is today? Because it seems like growing up, I don't remember having the variety of kids that had, because I think, ADHD, it seems like there's more kids today that have those things. Is there anything in our society, because they say we're getting healthier, but it seems like more kids are allergic to peanuts. You know what I'm saying? More kids have these type of allergic type reactions.
Right.
And I'm wondering, why would that be?
Well, first of all, I don't think you can glom ADHD in with allergies and asthma, because it's not really an immune disorder. We think of it more as kind of a behavioral mental disorder that has to do with the wiring of the brain, and I don't know that anyone has established any kind of immune component to ADHD. And why ADHD is being diagnosed more is that we are more aware of it now than we were when you and I were children. And we have better treatment for it now that we make the diagnosis. So for the ADHD component, I think that should answer your question. As far as the asthma and allergy question is concerned.
Like peanuts and
Right,
celiac, I mean, I hear
right.
about a lot of these things, and gluten, it could be,
Right.
again,
Well, I don't
common
know.
knowledge is not what it was then and now.
I don't know that celiac disease has really shown a dramatic increase. I know there's a lot of people out there that either are a little sensitive to gluten or think they're sensitive to gluten, but the celiac disease, where there's an identifiable antibody reaction to the lining of the intestine, I think that stayed pretty constant. As far as allergies and asthma, I think, again, the jury is still out on that. There's lots of theories floating around that people are now not exposed to as many antigens as they were in the olden days, where kids played outside and were exposed to a lot of antigens in the soil. They got dirty more often. They were exposed to different insects, which may or may not have had any kind of bearing in that. But there's no information that I have that we know exactly why allergies and asthma seem to be on the uptick.
Well, thank you very much.
Right.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. I have a question. In medical school, how much information did you receive? Don't read too much into this question. I'm just thinking, was there much study or much instruction about these vaccines and about the ingredients in the vaccines, or has that just been a recent development that we've taken more note of recently?
Well, when I was in medical school, and that was 30 years ago, we had an entire course that was entitled Immunology. And immunology is the basis for our concepts behind vaccinations. So I don't know that we were trained as much in the other contents of vaccinations, but I know we had a thorough education into the concepts between vaccination and different types of T cells and antibody reactions.
Okay, that's fine. Just kind of crossed my mind. Thank you very much, ma'am. I'm assuming that, Ms. Representative Pollack.
Thank you for your testimony. In your years of practice, did you ever advise against immunizations?
Yes.
Do you know how many times?
Oh, Lord. Well, I was one of those pediatricians that would sit down with the parents and talk to them about their concerns and take their concerns under consideration. I would also offer a different schedule if they were more comfortable with that schedule. And I think one thing that I'm hearing tonight that I really hadn't heard before is that there's a distinct lack of communication between physicians and parents. And I think it would behoove us as physicians to perhaps open up the lines of communication a little bit more. But to answer your question, there was probably just a handful of times in the 20 plus years I practiced where I honestly thought that there might be a physical reason why the patient should not get a particular immunization at a particular time.
Thank you. One other theory I've kind of come up with on my own, it's probably, I've worked in healthcare for 22 years, and in the last 10 years I've seen where patients doing their homework and finding out things on the internet and other sources. And, I've seen it kind of annoy the doctors.
Yes.
And, you know, do you think that's a prevalent thing?
Yes, and, how to put this, yes, it can be annoying, but in reality, the annoyance can go away if the parent, it's always the parent, not the patient in our case, if the parent is willing to sit down and go over what they think they've read and listen to me as a pediatrician try to explain why my view might be different than what they think they might have read. But I think it's would be human nature not to be annoyed. I mean, if you're a CPA and someone comes up to you and says, well, I don't think we should take XYZ/BF because I read and Googled that it's not a good idea to do that, the CPA is gonna look at them like, well, who do you think you are? So I think it's a natural tendency, and I have to admit, yes, I have been annoyed. But if we look at it as an opportunity to talk to the parent, give them your opinion as a physician, I think it can be kind of an opening for a nice discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next. You know the scoop.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Olga Pina. I come from Dominican Republic originally, and then I migrated to the United States in 2013. In 2015, I started my pediatric residency program in New York City, in Lincoln Hospital in the Bronx, where we had a lot of population in terms of Hispanic, underserved population. So I kind of was exposed to a lot of these diseases that we're trying to prevent today. I relocated to Missouri because of a great opportunity. I'm also a mom of two, 2 years old and a 9-month-old boy, and I'm also a wife. So coming from Dominican Republic, I had the opportunity to see many of these preventable diseases that we're trying to recommend the parents today. Since medical school in 2004, I've seen so many cases of meningitis. I've seen so many cases of pneumococcal diseases. I've seen so many cases of measles and varicella, and pretty much I've seen the worst of these diseases. And today I stand in front of all of you